Welcome to the Pave Podcast. Join us as we explore innovative biblical strategies and revolutionary tools to empower you to be a catalyst for church growth. Be inspired by church growth practitioners who are expanding God's kingdom in their communities and around the world. Now here's your host, Jonathan L. Smith.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to the Pave Podcast, where we help pastors find new paths for church growth. I'm Jonathan Smith, the Director of Church Health and Growth at Texas Baptist, also known as the Baptist General Convention of Texas. The Pave Podcast is made possible by your gifts and contributions to the cooperative program here at Texas Baptist, also by your gifts to the Mary Hill Davis offering. Today, I'm excited to have one of our Pave pastors joining us. This is Pastor Mark Davis of FBC Crosbyton, and today we're going to be talking about how living the mission equals church revitalization. So, Pastor Mark, welcome to the Pave Podcast.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good to be here.
Man, it's good to have you with us. So, people are instantly saying, I have not heard of Crosbyton, Texas. Where in the world is Crosbyton, Texas?
Yeah, we are out in West Texas. We're on the east side, about 30 minutes out of Lubbock. You've probably driven through it, but yeah, we're a small town out here.
Yeah, so Pastor, how long have you been there? Tell us a little bit about how God is revitalizing your church. It's a great story.
Yeah, so we've been here just about 3 years, and God's been doing an amazing work. He was doing it before we got here through the interim period.
Right.
And we got to come in to a church that was really kind of asking the question, where do we go? Where do we go from here? There was a desire to reach people. There was some eyes opened during the interim period because of different things that God worked out, and also a great interim that people were asking questions. How have we gotten here? And is this all that there is? And is there a future? What does it look like? And so God had already done a lot of the hard work of Pave. Honestly, he's the best church revitalizer there is.
I preached that twice, man. That's good.
but he had already done a lot of the hard work, and people were asking questions of where do we go, and we got to come in and emphasize the mission, both with the local sharing of the gospel, reaching the community, but also with going on missions. And what it's led to is more baptisms, more people coming to Christ. It's led to people thriving in their walks. It's led to we're about to send out several as ministers of the gospel, people who have discerned God is calling them to ministry. And
So good.
yeah, no, it's led to a season of growth, not just in number, but also in the depth, I think, of our obedience. And we've seen our church become more like the community. We've seen us send people out. We've seen a life restored to the church.
Man, so good, so good. And, one of the things I teach all the time, that we'll get into our questions in just a moment. One of the things I teach all the time is a pastor will show up at a church, or a pastor who's been there for a while will have a realization of, hey, we've got to revitalize. And a lot of times what we instantly reach for is changing some of the essential things in the church, like changing committee structure, maybe changing from, maybe adding some deacons, maybe revamping Sunday school somehow, messing with the structures and the programs. You'll get there eventually, but this is my experience. And pastors, if you're listening today, I want you to really clue into this idea. The first place to go is to get the people living missionally and evangelistically again. The reason, as Pastor Mark's about to talk with us about, is because that will shift the culture of the church faster than anything else. We teach in Pave that the more missionally we live, the more evangelistically we live, the more fruit that we see from that, the more likely the church is to accept the changes that need to come anyways. So, with that, again, we're going to talk about how living the mission equals church revitalization. So, question number one, Pastor Mark, how does living the mission equal church revitalization?
Yeah, that's good. I go back to scripture, and I see that whenever God's people um had gone astray, or when they were in a season where they were oppressed, or they had whatever it was, when they cried out to God and came back to his heart and what he had for them, his plan, um it 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 changed everything. And what is God's plan for his church? What is his heart for his church? It's that they would be disciples who go out and make disciples. It'd be that we're a church who takes seriously the Great Commission, and lives out what he has designed for his church. And so for me, I think for anybody who's coming into a church, going right back to God's heart, right? His design for your church, even though all of our churches look different, his design for your church is to be a light in your community, and to shine his light, and for your people to go out and be witnesses to him. That's been the plan since day one, and I think that as the church um, is obedient to that, God blesses obedience.
That's
And
right.
and we also hold on to the promises that his spirit, it goes before us, that it's his salvation, not ours, that he's the one responsible for life change. And as we're obedient to go and share, we get to see God work in amazing ways, just like he said that he will.
One of the things we teach our children, right, is obedience yields blessing. Right. But disobedience, right? It's why I'm convinced that the reason that, 85 to 95% of churches in our nation are plateaued or in decline is this one simple reason. It's obedience to the Great Commission. I think this is in the Great Commission. We just kind of struggle to see it. And surely I am with you always to the end of this age, to the end of the church age, to the end of the world, till he comes and rescues his people and takes us to be with him, right? So when a church gets back on the mission, this is my experience, unexplainable things happen. Supernatural and unexplainable things happen. In my experience as a senior pastor, the more we went on mission, the more people would just be sent to our church. The Lord sent us deacons who were ordained elsewhere, who were amazing deacons. The Lord
Mm.
sent me a worship leader who I did not have to pay. He was a volunteer. 10 years later, he's still volunteering as that worship leader. The Lord sent us just an army of people to continue to take the mission forward. And I think that the supernatural things happen when we are obedient to the Lord, and especially when a church is obedient to his great commission. The unexpected things happen. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's the truth. We've seen things that just don't make sense. We've seen our youth pastors showing up to a restaurant to eat, and now fast forward 6 months, and the cook that he invited to church is who was in a place far from God, is now a believer. His
Let's
girlfriend
go.
became a believer. They got married. And now that same guy who was cooking at the local diner is about to be sent out as a youth pastor, like, and it has discerned that God has called him to it's insane. I
You
mean, who
can't
can
make that
do
up.
this but
You can't.
God? You
That's
can't make
right.
it
You
up.
can't make that
Can't
up.
make it up.
Yeah. It goes back to your point that you made really well a moment ago. This is the Lord's gospel, and we are stewards of it. It doesn't belong to us. God has allowed us to live inside as we believe the truth of his gospel, right? But it's his. It belongs to him. But the Lord, right? It's even right there. As silly as it may seem, I have a friend who says that every time that we share the Lord's Supper with one another, right? The Christian life is always something to be shared. The gospel is something to be shared, not kept to ourselves. My brother, my oldest brother, is a stroke survivor, and he went to a hospital, a recovery hospital that he was at for like 6 months. It was a very, very serious stroke, and they gave him life skills back. He couldn't walk, he could barely speak, he couldn't pick anything up. So when he's talking to people that have had strokes, what does he do? He praises this place. Why? Because they changed his life. So yeah,
Mm.
the gospel is right here with us, and it's why the living the mission equals church revitalization, because we're then saying, Lord, we want to be obedient, we want to follow you, we trust you, we know what we're called to and why. We're going to do it, and we're going to trust you for the rewards. Now, the opposite could also be true. You could have a church that's obedient to the Lord and obedient to the gospel that does not see a ton of salvations and a ton of growth. That doesn't mean that something is wrong. That just means that it's God, it's His salvation, it's in His time and in His way. Okay, so here's the second question. Why is getting a plateaued or declining church back on the mission? Why is that so hard? Why is it so difficult to get a declining or plateaued church to live on the mission again?
Yeah, I think that there's several reasons. You could speak to you're dealing with a lot of established culture. You're dealing with established traditions. You kind of get a little bit of the mentality sometimes of you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
There you go.
And the church starts to believe that. Maybe
Right.
individual members start to believe that about themselves, but
Yeah.
even churches can say, well, this is who we've been forever, and we view the church as something that is pretty immovable at times. But just like it's God's gospel, it's God's church. And it needs to be conformed to his image and his plan and his mission. And so I think that there's part of the reason why it's hard is because there has to be at the beginning a softening of hearts
Hmm.
um, to receive what the Lord has, right? I think we're quicker to do that sometimes for our own lives than we are for our church. And
Wow. Wow. Wait,
yeah,
hang on. Unpack that a little bit. That's really powerful. Say that again and tell us more.
yeah, I think that we're a little quicker to receive what God has for us and soften a softening within um our own lives than we are within our church. And I think that part of that is just because we came to this church for a reason, right? At some point, we came to this church for a reason, and so even if we don't say it out loud, I think we carry a lot of we have a sense of ownership of it. We have
Hmm.
preferences, and it's not that those are necessarily bad things, but when we're holding on to them so tight that we're not giving up control and
Yeah.
not giving the ownership to God and not giving up our preferences, surrendering them to His, I think that that can lead to resistance of some things that need to happen in order to see a revitalized church.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You talked earlier when just before we started this podcast about something real specific about how the morale of the church was low
Mm.
and about
Yeah.
how the church had bought into some lies. Tell us about more about that.
Yeah, this was stuff that kind of went on in the interim period before we got here, and for us, it was things that we heard said, or that I was told were said, like, you know, does the church have a future? What is the future of the church? You know, things like, are we just keeping the doors open? Is a pastor going
Mm.
to want to come here?
Right.
And through that, uh, you see that the church had definitely hit like a rough spot. They had definitely the morale was low, but at some level, there's also attacks by the enemy that had been effective in telling these lies to our church, and people kind of questioning, like, well, is there a future, right? And so coming into a church that's established and in need of revitalization, you do have to be aware of where people are at, in their view of the church, in where they've been and where they're headed. Because a lot of times a pastor is coming in with this expectation of, man, this is a church that has potential. Let's go. And there needs to be work because the people aren't necessarily there yet. They don't see the bright future. They
Right.
might still be kind of seeing and asking the questions, uh, is this all that there is? And so as a pastor, it's often challenging because you have to kind of come in and be a counselor of sorts,
Mm.
and really kind of address and help the people see that God's plan for His church has not changed. His plan for your church is still to be a light in the darkness, to thrive, to be a part of the kingdom's reach right there. Even if you can't see it, God has the power to make it happen. A lot of times it just means getting right back to what God, His vision, His heart, and coming back to the mission.
Man, that's so good, Pastor Mark. The thing I was thinking when you were talking is that so often, right, they're pining for the past. It's so hard to get them to move forward because they're thinking about the past. They're thinking about, to some degree, even the successes of the past, if we can use the term success in God's kingdom. It's His success, not our success, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always questioning those pastors and churches and saying, okay, but what was happening? Why was the church so excited back in its golden era? Well, there were more people, there was more ministry, there were more baptisms. So anytime, the reason that living the mission equals church revitalization is because living the mission is living forward, not living backward. Living the mission is living forward. It's trusting God. It's
Mhm.
trusting His plan. It's trusting the His proclamations in the Great Commission and the Great Commandments. Right, to love one another, to love Him, to love neighbor, and to take the gospel forward. But that for living the mission is always going to take us in our minds forward, in our practice forward. So that's one of my reasons why living the mission equals church revitalization. But Pastor, I think you're just right. The morale of these churches often is so low. And if you step in as a new pastor or you have that realization and you're like, we need to change, and you start messing with the existing ministries, you're going to further lower the morale of those people. Instead, live the mission, live it early, live it often, as we're about to talk about, and watch what the Lord does as the excitement of people experiencing what God's kingdom is like. Just let it take you where it's supposed to take you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think the temptation there, like you said, is to come in and start fixing stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
but I had to be very aware as a young pastor coming in, with believers who have been believers longer than I've been alive.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Sure. Yeah.
it we have to remember that the church of old is not our enemy, right? It's not something to be
Mm.
overcome, right?
Wow.
It's part of our it's part of our heritage, right? And and as we come in, and we start to jump into committee structures and bylaws and these kind of things, sometimes you can come across as, uh, you guys just had it wrong.
Mm.
Let me fix it for you.
Yep.
And 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 really what the church needs a lot of times is not a correction, in that kind of way, right? Um, what it needs is someone who comes in and says, "I'm with you. I believe
Yeah.
in
Yep.
us together because I believe in the God that we serve." And so really pointing it not to, the reason that we're down is because of these things. We'll get to those things eventually in the
Right.
correct
That's
timing.
right.
But when you come in and you start pointing to God and making it about, this is His church and this is His plan and we're a part of that and we always have been, and let's get back to this. Um, it I think it helps people, buy in, because now you're not saying, I'm the new pastor, I'm going to come in and change everything. You're pointing them back to the same God that has had His hand on our church for however many years,
Let's go.
and saying, I believe in this future because I believe in God, right?
Man, that is so good. A statement you made is just like it's going to be emblazoned in my mind. The church of old is not our enemy. That is so right on, Pastor. That's officially stolen. I'm going to be using that now. Like, going to be my new hashtag. It's excellent. So hey, we're going to start landing the plane. If you've listened to the Pave podcast before out there, pastors, we want you to have some of the practical steps that you need. So here's how we're going to end today. 6 practical steps just to help your church get back on the mission, to start living the mission again. Rapid fire. Here we go. I got the first one. Here's the first thing. Pastor, you got to shift something in your mind. Many of us think and believe, and I'm not saying that this is wrong, that our primary role in the church is preaching. It is the most public thing that you do, but in revitalization, it may not be the most important thing that you do. Let me say that again. It's the most public thing that you do, but in a church revitalization setting, it might not be the most important thing that you do. Let's say, Pastor, that you spend 8 to 10 hours per week in sermon preparation and then like an hour-ish, in a worship service of delivery, okay? If you spend 8 to 10 hours there, you've got to spend 8 to 10 hours on the mission, equipping people to live the mission, preparing them to live the mission, evangelism training, taking people on mission, strategizing around the mission. You have got to shift your thinking. You are not just the lead preacher or the lead shepherd. You are the lead evangelist and lead missionary. That's practical step number one. Mark, go.
I think just run alongside that. It's identify things that you can give ownership away
Mm,
on. As a someone who's coming in, it can get overwhelming really fast. So it's a two-parter. One, because you need help. You can't revitalize alone. You have to give ownership away to the people, because ultimately it's not your church, it's our church, right? It's Jesus's church, but we all are have been given a stewardship of it to some degree, and so giving ownership away, and so identifying people not only that you can train up, but also the things that you can help them own. And so for us, that's been some mission trips. We started out going on missions and mission trips, and I led it for a couple years, and now this year we've given it away, and now others in the
so good.
church have a heart for it, are going to continue the trip because they're now taking ownership of it without me, and now that's freed me up to do other things.
Yep. Started a different trip or something along that line. That's great. Okay. Number three. Here we go. Pastor, you need to come up with a mission or ministry that 80% of your church can do every year. Here's what I mean. When I was leading church revitalization, we chose a place that was an hour away. It was a Sunday morning ministry experience, a church under the bridge type experience, where we washed hands, we washed feet, we trimmed fingernails, and we trimmed toenails. That was not easy to do, but it was it was about an hour away. It was just a day trip. It didn't require anything overnight. But here's what happened. Over that year, we would say our expectation is that everyone's going to live on mission, and we have a mission opportunity for you that you and your family can go do, that grandkids and grandma can go do, whatever. It was all pre-planned. We set the travel together. We all went there together. We had dinner whenever it was over on the way back to kind of talk about it or whatever. But here's what happened. That gave people that are never going to go on a short-term or a long-term mission trip the opportunity to feel missional, to live missional, and to feel missional. And there's something about that. And if they can live missional someplace else, then all of a sudden there's this realization, oh my gosh, this isn't a special day. Living on mission is every day. Let me say that twice. That this isn't a special day. Living on the mission is my everyday. And there's something really powerful about providing an opportunity for almost your whole congregation to do something like that in a given year. Mark, number 4, here we go.
Yeah, I would say build relationships as you can with churches, mission organizations, whatever it is outside of your context that can help
Great.
mold your people. It's not all going back to, it's not all up to you, but for us, we established a relationship with a church planner, and we not just support them, but they mold our church
Right.
by our interaction. They've come down. It's a long lasting relationship where now we can, for years now, this is going to be part of our DNA of we're part of this church plan. We have a sister church, and here's the update on how it's going and those kind of things.
Yeah. So
They've
good.
been a part of molding us. Local ministries. We have a local campground that has very much become part of our church's DNA. We're out there serving. We're out there, but they're molding us as well. And I think that we're better when we build those critical relationships that can pour right back into our congregation.
Yeah, so you're advocating for like long-term missional partnerships. That's so good. Just super fast. Been a part of baseball camps in Germany.
Mhm.
Had two brothers who went to like 15 different baseball camps over the years. They were even translating the gospel for us when they were not followers of Jesus. But
Mhm.
on my 10th time to go, they broke, they received the Lord together. Going back to the same place is really powerful. Here's number 5, Pastor. Living, so we're talking about how living the mission equals church revitalization. But the best way to help people live missionally is to send them, right? We can train and
Mhm.
train and train, but the best trainer is actually sending them. So I would advocate in any church that needs to be revitalized. I was talking to a pastor just a few days ago, and I asked him, "When's the last time you trained for evangelism?" He said, "We haven't done that in 7 years." "When's the last time you went on a mission trip?" "We haven't done that in 7 years." I turned to him and I said, "Here's what you do: train them for evangelism the next 3 months, and send as little as 3 people on a mission trip the next 3 months. I don't care where, I don't care when, I don't care to who, but choose a place and send as little as 3 people, and then come back. And then Sunday number one person talks about it. Sunday number two, someone talks about it. Sunday number three, someone talks about it. Don't do an all mission report, all reporting in one day. Spread that out and just watch what the Lord does as a few people begin to live on mission. Start small and let it grow. Number 6, and here's the last one.
Yeah, one of the pay principles is display the church that you want to become.
That's right.
And I think one of the things that we picked up very naturally was the baptism strategy
Yeah.
and the emphasis of, of baptisms and resurrections, if you will. But with that said, it also applies to missions, right? And so as we've gone on missions, as we've had people living on mission, as we've seen lives changed, I think part of it is just like what you just said, display the church you want to become. So really spend time talking about missions, give reports on how your sister church is doing, how this ministry is doing. Give time to people who've gone out on mission to come back and share with the church. It's something that we saw Paul and Barnabas doing, right?
Right.
It's been
Exactly.
part of
So
our
good.
DNA from the beginning, right? And so talk about the mission and give airplay to it during those big moments in your service. Allow it not just to be something that's going on in the background, but bring it to the forefront of your church services. That way, it not just tells your people there is life and helps fight against that negative morale, but it also inspires others to join in and jump in on the mission.
Man, so good. There's 6 simple practical steps to help your church start living on the mission, because living the mission equals church revitalization. Pastor Mark, thanks for joining us today on the Pave Podcast, and thanks to all of you for listening. Pave is a ministry of Texas Baptist. You can learn more about the vast ministries at Texas Baptist. In fact, as we're talking about these ideas and you're like, man, I don't know who to turn to go on a mission trip, we have a whole missions department,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
txb.org. You can find out about all the different centers and the ministries here at Texas Baptist. To learn more about the PAVE ministry, go to txb.org/PAVE. Pastor, we'll see you the next time we pass through Crosbyton, Texas. Hey, keep on leading well. Everyone who's listening today is like, hey, this is a smart guy. No wonder he's leading so well and his church is doing so well. So keep up the good work, man. Thankful for you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you.